Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Tuesday, July 14th. Got a fun show today. Notre Dame lands a commitment from linebacker Roman Igwebuike. So we'll talk about him. We will talk about how Notre Dame has reached a milestone in recruiting that a couple years ago you wouldn't have thought was possible. And then Brian Kelly wants back to Notre Dame. He wants to hang out. He wants the fans to know that he's supportive of the program. So we'll talk about that. And there's a topic in the chat about CJ Carr and his deep ball. So we can talk about that as well. It's going to be a very fun show today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know whatever it is we are going live. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches, from All-Americans to All-Pros and associates to CEOs. You're in great hands with ESQ's custom clothing. Whether you're looking for a perfect fitting suit, a standout sport coat, or a perfect tuxedo for weddings and galas, ESQ's master tailors blend traditional hand stitching in each garment with Italy and England's best fabrics. Check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD, get 10% off your entire purchase. It's esqclothing.com. Listeners to the show will remember this trip that I'm on last year. I'm in Sacramento right now for my son's regional baseball tournament. Tough loss yesterday to the Hawaii boys. I was telling you before the show, Jamie, those boys were on point. They turned 3 double plays, clean double plays too. So credit to them. They're just a better team. Hopefully we got kind of a must-win game in a couple hours. So, good luck to my son and his friends and his teammates and everything. It's going to be a very fun time. Jamie, Roman Igwebuike joins the class, linebacker out of Chicago. What's Notre Dame getting here, Jamie? We know Mike linebacker, right? He's got some qualities who could come off the edge. Very long levers, as Matt Freeman likes to say. What do you like about Roman Igwebuike, Jamie?
Yeah, he's a Mike linebacker who, has the versatility to play off the edge and rush the passer off the edge, be a guy who plays on every down. I think similar to KVA, similar to Sneed. I think Palermo. I think you're going to see, obviously, he's somebody who showed a little bit of that in high school, too, where he can rush off the edge. I think you're going to see more of that. Maris Liafau, obviously. You're going to see a guy who can do that kind of thing, right? And when there's someone who can do that, and you see him rush the passer and do it really well, you see it off the edge. You see him rush the passer from inside and do it really well too. That's super valuable. That is just one of those things that when someone comes in already and they do something at a pretty high level, that's super valuable. He's big already. He's 6'3", he's already 220. Most guys who come in are frankly around 210-ish or something like this at the same point. So for him to be already around 220, and
looks like he could add weight too.
He looks like he can add big weight.
Yeah.
It isn't crazy to think that he could maybe grow into an edge. That is a possibility, but I do think he'll probably be around easily to over 230, 235, 240, and could be a lot more if they really wanted to, right? Because I think it's a little bit similar to Josh Burnham in a way too, right? Where he was a guy who came in, I think it was 217 pounds when he reported. He weighs around 260-ish now, right? By the time he left Notre Dame, right? So I don't know, he doesn't have to do that for Igwebuike. I don't think it's a given that he's going to do it. And I'm sure Notre Dame fans don't want to hear that since he's the only linebacker in the class. Yeah. But you'll just kind of see where, if that's where he ends up being best, or that's where his body grows, I think that could be a real possibility. Right. And, but also at the same time, you see a guy who he can really run. He's not someone that kind of jumps off as man, this is an elite athlete, but I think it's because he's a long strider that kind of covers a lot of ground and not as many steps. And that something to there. I talked about with Mike yesterday on Power Hour how anyone who's got 111 tackles in in a season, some guys getting triple digit tackles, that's usually a pretty good sign. This guy knows how to find the football. I mean, you can see it on film as well, but if there's somebody there and you look at a linebacker and you see this an athlete, incredible athlete, hit 30 something tackles in the season. Well, that's concerning,
Right.
like these are guys who should dominate. And if you're having a triple digit tackles in a season, that means you're a dominant player, right? And I think that kind of production does matter, and he is able to find the football in versus the inside run game. He has to get obviously got to get a lot stronger, got to get a lot better at using his length in terms of taking on blocks, defeating blocks, and all that. I think there's some stuff with like false step stuff that he'll have to like correct, but I don't think that's stuff that it can be like drilled into somebody, and that and actually could go like actually a really long way into him. And also too, he's not going to be somebody who has to play early. No linebackers play early except for like KPA or whatever. There's not too many guys that come in as freshmen and then are just ready to go. And he won't have to be. And he can really take like a year or two to kind of develop and get there. But I think he has a chance to be like a really, high quality starter with like and versatile player once he is develops over the first couple of years.
Especially like 111 tackles when you figure every team is targeting him and being like, hey, we make sure we get 2-3 bodies on him on every given play, right? Like he's not the kind of guy you lose, right? So for him to create production like that, like that's a lot of tackles for anybody. It's like you said, like making plays, because there's a difference between like some guys, and you've seen it 100 times before. Like some guys have those physical traits that just jump out, but then does he make tackles? Like he doesn't really make a ton. He doesn't have a ton of production, right? And now why is that? And sometimes you can talk yourself into why that might be or whatever. I think with Igwebuike, like he has the production and he also has the physical traits, which is obviously, kind of the best of both worlds for what you're looking for, especially at linebacker. Like you want someone who can find the ball, and can finish at the point of attack. And so that's a lot of, he checks both of those boxes. I think someone brought up, I don't want to put it on this. I don't want to make this comp lightly because it's just, he turned out to be a very good, very, very good college player. But he's asking about Will Anderson Jr. Did he start at middle linebacker at Alabama and then he moved to edge for the Texans? He was also an edge. He played a lot of edge for Alabama.
Yeah, I was edge the whole time, I believe.
Yeah. So was he that type of prospect coming out of high school? I didn't cover Will Anderson at all, so I don't know what people thought of him as a.
He wasn't player, somebody who was. He wasn't like one of the sites had him pretty high. I can't remember off the top of my head. I believe. Oh yeah, like 247. He had him as like a top 5 player, right? Like he was a 5-star. No, I was wrong. Like he was a 5-star overall. I knew that he was ranked pretty high, but I also believe he was someone who kind of creeped up. Like,
did he always project as an edge?
I'm pretty sure. Like that I can recall that he was somebody who, was seen that way.
Yeah.
I do think too, he was somebody that, like, I think it was like late in the process, he went and just dominated like the Army game or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that was like the kind of thing that really kind of showed. And obviously now he's probably like the second best edge rusher in the NFL, or some people might say he's better than Myles Garrett, right? So he's pretty exceptional. Yeah, I mean, I always think too, like, when we're talking about like Will Anderson or something like that, like we always gotta like chill. We gotta chill.
Yeah, like I think, but it's hard for people to make a comp for someone who is like borderline, like it would be. I'm trying to think of a player at Notre Dame, and it's kind of hard to do that because normally they're just like. They are what they are when they are recruited.
There's a bunch of guys that have I mean, I just said Josh Burnham, right? Like that's a guy who was like he was an inside linebacker. He also was like a high school quarterback. Like that's somebody
Fleming's pretty
there.
good. Fleming's pretty good. Darius
Yeah.
Fleming's pretty good.
But he was always kind of projected as an edge. He was
Yeah.
never really like truly as an inside linebacker. I mean, I guess you could say Steve Filer, and that's obviously not something that worked out, but he was somebody who was playing inside linebacker and then moved to edge, who probably always should have been an edge, right? But I think too, like you can find in a whole bunch of given years, it's hard to go back and see exactly, because there's a lot of guys now, they do a better job of it where they just like project guys, they put edge, right, for player rankings, where before they used to be like OLB, right? And then some of those OLBs were inside linebackers, right? So it's like didn't exactly fit, but I mean, we could go through like a bunch of years with guys who were linebackers, grew into edges and all of that. Like that's something that's pretty common. And I would say too, like the way to look at it is it's better to be KVA where you're like, he can play off the ball. By the way, like I actually saw like from what I saw of him in coverage too, like he can play in coverage. Like it's not like something he's going to be just a strict pass rusher on third downs. Like he can play in coverage. I don't think he's like stiff by any means. But a KVA guy who's like, he can play off the ball. He can play on the ball. He can stack up on a tight end and just like own that guy at the point of attack. He's someone who can line up off the edge and rush the passer there, right? Like he's a good blitzer. That's the ideal that you kind of want to have. You want to have that kind of guy, or like Jalen Walker, right? Like who's Jalen Walker, who I think because Georgia was so loaded at edge, they were like, yeah, he's only going to rush on like third downs. But really, if he was at another school, he might have just been like, hey, you're going to play the edge the whole time because it's just ridiculous. Or Abdul Carter, that's a perfect example. He was someone they recruited him as a linebacker, and it's kind of insane when you think about it, because this guy was like, I mean, he's probably one of the best pass rushers that I've seen in the last like 10 years out of like an edge guy. And you're like, why didn't they like year one be like, we got to move this guy to the edge? Like, because he was just more of a hybrid guy early on. And it just seems stupid. And then when they moved him, it was like, oh yeah. Now he's like unblockable and totally changed their defense.
Yeah. Is Igwebuike bigger than Drake Bowen as a senior?
I mean, he's taller and longer.
They're so different body types.
Yeah, they're just very different body types. I would say like Drake was more like jacked. Like he was more physically developed in that way. Also, Drake is someone too who really like came in, and he was like, there's a reason why he played as a freshman. I mean, he didn't play a lot, but he was playing as a freshman because he was ahead of the curve in a lot of ways, right? Like he came in like ready to go, and also mentally too. He's a smart kid, and he's a guy who really, really cares.
Yeah.
But he was someone that you can go back and like watch clips of him like working out in his garage, and they're like, his dad like set it all up for him and his brothers to like work out, and he's pushing pounds or whatever, doing weight that normally you wouldn't see for a guy his size do that kind of stuff, and he was just different. So I don't even know if they're really like comparable. It's a lot different.
Yeah. Chris asked the question everyone wants to know is like, do you think they'll add another linebacker to the class? I would say probably, but who it is, we may not know who that linebacker is right now. Guys, similar to like when they added the late running backs, when like Audric Estime was added late, and you don't know their name until like December. That might be a later eval if it comes. I think they probably want to, but that player also has to be like really good too. So, and plus I don't think they've given up on Caden Henderson either, right? I think that's still somewhat of a possibility. So yeah. What do you think, Jamie?
Well, I also think that usually what happens, because everyone knows like high school season really starts in like August now, where there's a bunch of games played in August, and usually like some pretty big teams. So you get evaluations on guys before the college football season starts, right? So um, that's when, say, Mason Graham, who was, became a top 5 pick and a dominant player at Michigan, that's when he blew up. Was
Yeah.
I think he was committed to Boise State, and he had some Power 4 offers, but he wasn't like seen as this guy. And then during August, he got offered by Michigan, and then he started to kind of blow up a bit, and then that's how he ended up at Michigan. So I would say there's probably guys on their list that they're going to evaluate and see how they look early on. There's certainly a lot of guys who take a big physical jump from junior to senior that they're going to watch and all that too. There might be someone who just pops up on the radar out of nowhere. There may be people that they're like back channel talking about now that we don't even know about, because that happens all the time too. And chances are, if they're going to flip someone that is, even if it's not someone who is from like a big program or whatever, the idea is to keep it as secret as possible, because the more that, if some guy comes out next week and says, it's an honor to get a Notre Dame offer, well, that puts it on the radar of the school to start. Then they start, whoever he's committed to starts trying to play defense and all that.
Yeah.
It also puts it on the radar of maybe some other teams who are like, hey, we need a linebacker too. There's going to be other teams who are like, yeah, maybe this guy's open. This guy's open for business. We should go take a look at him. Didn't know he was looking around. So I think the ideal thing is to kind of put it on the back burner and then see. I would say too, because that is something, you mentioned Audric Estime. Cam Herron's a perfect example, because that was a guy who came, he camped at Notre Dame, and they didn't offer him right away. And I was like, oh, well, I guess he's not going to get the offer. And then they kind of like back channeled it, and then they were just creeping. And then all of a sudden, Cam Herron's visiting, and oh yeah, he's going to commit. Like, so could just happen like that.
Could happen very quickly. Chris Wallace says the Bowen household is an athlete factory. That is true. Drake is going to be a 3-time captain, I believe it is, at Notre Dame, and or a 2-time captain at Notre Dame, 3-year starter. His brother Dylan just got drafted by I think it was the Reds, right? Reds in the 5th round. So he's probably going to be going to do that. And then I think that the Dallas is the younger sister, and I think she's like a really good softball player, like star softball player. So they got good genes going on over there at the Bowen household. So good job by them. Paulo says, Greg, hope you're staying cool. It's hot as heck in SoCal. Well, I'm in NorCal, and it's 103 degrees this afternoon. They have a 1:30 game. That's not great. But they do. It's only the only 1:30 game they have, so that's tough. So yeah, hope the boys can stay cool. The commitment of Egwebuke moves Notre Dame to a very special, kind of notable mark in recruiting for the composite rankings for 247. So they are at 300, which with 300 points. I don't want to go into what that is. A lot of people follow recruiting very closely, know that that number is kind of significant in terms of just like, if you reach it, you've got an elite class. They're at 300.55 right now. 4 5-stars, 16, I believe it's 16 4-stars. I think that's what it is. So, and the thing is sometimes that number you feel like it's going to project down. It might actually project up, because they have.
I think it's going to project up.
Yeah, because you have Jackson Vaughn, who is a reclassification. They need to fix him, and he was a 5-star in the 28 class. You have Champ Mons, who's a reclassification, and then you have Segun Alexander, who's a reclassification, who he's going to get graded too. They're going to get graded higher than they currently are after they go through all that. So it's 300. We think it's going to go higher. So that's very significant in my opinion. And just like, this is where fans have just kind of been like, will Notre Dame ever get to that point? And Notre Dame is at that point. And so it's just, I think it's notable in the sense of like, Even the fact that like, and it's so coincidental to me that they hit it like the day before Brian Kelly decided to go on the Independent, talk to Pete Sampson and Matt Fortuna, and just talk about his time at Notre Dame and things that he couldn't do. And the fact that Notre Dame is now hitting that point when he didn't is super significant to me. And I think it's just like another benchmark for them. When people talk about, winning a national championship, is the drought going to end and that sort of thing? Like they're hitting all the marks. Marcus Freeman is hitting all the marks. Did you find it somewhat significant, just kind of as a symbol for the Notre Dame program?
No, not really, because I think like if you look at last year's class, I think Sam K pointed out 299.28, like it's negligible, like
For sure.
it's not like I think you can just see by the number of guys that were 5 stars, top 100, top 150, whatever you want to put the benchmarks or whatever, that it's just been different. The last 2 years specifically has just been huge, right? Like it's just been a completely different scale where Notre Dame hasn't had that in back-to-back years. Like going to talk about Brian Kelly in the 2013 class, which was a top 5 class. It was only top 5 class. There was never any follow-up to that, right? There was never anyone that was actually close, right? So, and I would say too, if you look at that class too, I think you could look at it in hindsight. And I wasn't.
Didn't they only have like 16 players or something? Like it was very small. There was one.
I think they had.
20, no, I'm sorry. That was the one that was very big. Excuse me. That was the Jalen Smith class.
They had 22. I think it was 22, and then 18 of them or 19 of them were blue chips, right? So 4 stars.
Yeah.
But they didn't have that many, as many top 100 guys as you think. And they didn't have as many guys that were like classified as like these guys were elite. And even if you think about it, like Greg Bryant and Max Redfield were, I think, the second and third highest ranked guys in the class.
Mm-hmm.
And they were definitely not like, to me, nothing. I don't want to speak ill of Greg Bryant, anything that happened to him after. I'm just saying at that time, I didn't see him. I didn't watch him and think, man, this guy's way better than Torian Folston. Like I personally I remember that. And I'm just being like, I don't know if this guy's a 5-star. Like, how do you rate a 5-star back when it's this guy looks, I thought I liked Folston better, right? But so I think there's some of that. And then also Redfield, it was like, well, he's just a freak athlete, but like, is he a safety? Is he a wide receiver? There was always the talk of like whether or not he'd be a better wide receiver. So it's just different. Like I view those guys as like different than when like Notre Dame landed Kyle Hamilton and Michael Mayer. And you're like, and those guys weren't in the same class. Obviously, they were in back-to-back classes. Yeah. But you look at those guys and you're like, seem like pretty sure things. Like those guys were that, and they've landed other guys there. But now it's like, I mean, not every one of these 5 stars is going to end up as good as everyone hopes they be. I'd say if you land 9 5 stars in 2 years, it's a good chance that 4 or 5 of them are going to be are going to be as good as you think they are. And that's kind of like the deal, right? Like where you have that and you put it together in back-to-back classes. You look at like the back-to-back defensive line classes, like, yeah. And that's why too, like Braden Parks, yes, it is a loss. He's a very, very good player. If he doesn't come, I'm saying like, still nothing there. And I would say the longer it goes on, it's a weird thing to me. Like, who knows what's going to happen, right? Like, I don't think anyone can predict either way. But if you're looking at him and then looking at like, well, the back-to-back classes of what they've done with like the interior guys, you'd say they're still in pretty good shape. Like they got a lot of good players there. I think they'll be fine, right? So, and that's kind of the deal. And like we know that, hey, they're going to have an awesome 2028 class too. Like that's just where it's at right now, right? So, keep an eye out for that. There's things trending in a good way there too. So it's just one of these things that it is the only comparable is in recent times is Holtz and what he did, right? In the late 80s, early 90s, and how he just elevated things with him and like Vinny Serrato and how they just elevated that, because there were never times like this under Brian Kelly.
Yeah. I think, I mean, go back to the Roman Iguabuke thing for a second. Like, I think in years past, he would be looked at. It's like maybe they'll probably move him to edge because they didn't recruit edges. Now it's like, well, he can just stay at linebacker, and we'll just, if they want to use him off the edge, they can. But it's like Josh Burnham kind of moved to edge because they need him to,
Yeah.
because they didn't
They did,
recruit the edge position the
they
way
did
that
a
they
bad
are.
job there. Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't, they needed it. And right now they don't. Like, they can use, it's just like KVA. Like, they can use him there because he has the skill set, but they don't need to. It's not a necessity, right? They don't need to generate a pass rush through him by necessity. It's just by his skill set. And that's kind of, the point of recruiting and everything. I think, going to the Brian Kelly conversation, like, I think, Sam K brings up a point, like, to be fair to BK and everything, and it got brought up on the show with Fortuna and Sampson about the facilities that Notre Dame has here. Like, they finally have the nutrition center, right, where everyone can go eat, and they built the new athletic center, and they built the new indoor facility and everything. Like, Notre Dame has absolutely leveled up facility wise, right? And I think that was something that Kelly had advocated for and kind of didn't get with the quickness that he kind of wanted it. And I believe that was referenced, when he ultimately made the decision to go to LSU. And I think it's interesting listening to him talk about it because, I was telling you before the show, I was listening to that interview thinking to myself, like, how would Marcus Freeman answer this question? And how would Marcus Freeman handle this?
Much differently.
And it's just night and day. And I think the reason that it happened under Freeman is because he went out and didn't let anything like that be an excuse for him. I mean, I'm sure he wanted it, and I'm sure he asked for it, but he went out there and he never said, this is what I need, or this is what I'm not getting, as an excuse. Like, the first couple years, like, they weren't great, lost at home to Marshall, right? You're losing games you shouldn't, right? They went 8-4, and they went 9-3 with Hartman, and that was a disappointment for a lot of people. And he continued to level up the program, and like, he never used anything as a crutch. And I thought it was super revealing, like, the type of person that Kelly is and the way that he thinks versus Marcus Freeman, when they asked him about, would it be better if would it have been better for you at LSU had you landed Reese and Freeman as your coordinators? Because that was what he wanted. And he was kind of like, yeah, like, I missed on coordinator hires. And I was like, Freeman would never say no. Like, he would never say it was out of my hands in a way. Like, if I had only had this, he would never
direct
say that.
it back to himself and say,
Yes.
I got to do a better job, or I could have done a better job helping that guy and this and that. Like, he doesn't pass the buck. He doesn't pass the buck. Yeah. And I think there's just a lot there that you could even say with Marcus Freeman too. And I would compare this to a lot of different coaches in college football. When things weren't going good and they're not recruiting at a certain level, get those guys in whether it's a feature from Pete Thamel, whether it's a press conference at the end of the year, whether it's whatever, these guys are always talking like, well, we got to have more NIL investment in our program. They're complaining about it publicly. And I'm not saying that Marcus Freeman probably didn't complain about it, but it privately and telling people this is what we need. And when you handle business internally and do it that way, and then also show gains there. So like, Notre Dame didn't have this. It's great that they have this nutrition center now. That's awesome. That's great. They built a program that's an elite program without it. Yeah. That all happened before it came. All of this stuff that happened before the new complex has opened and all that kind of stuff. They still had the same limitations in a lot of ways that Brian Kelly did. He Freeman found solutions and was able to do something. And also too, he was able to, as someone mentioned it in the comments about how, yes, it's Freeman is a way better recruiter and is able to sell Notre Dame to people for sure. That is definitely a thing. He's a way better recruiter. He found people on the staff who are way better. Like, and everybody from recruiting staff to assistant coaches to everybody, right? That I think do a better job of like selling Notre Dame and all that. But you also have to sell like a vision to the people who are going to give money to the program and fund it that way. And Brian Kelly just doesn't. That's one thing he doesn't seem, which I don't think he should go. If he clearly wants to coach again, he's trying to do this rehabilitation thing to try to paint him in a different way. And I think it's not that it's a mistake for him to rehabilitate his image. Hey, he should. It's like coming out with Moana, the live action, when they just had Moana. It's too soon, man. It's too soon. There's no nostalgia for it. I think if you give distance to what, Marcus Freeman and between Marcus Freeman and Brian Kelly, and you look back at it and you could say, man, BK did a lot of good things at Notre Dame, and he really changed some stuff, and they did go forward. Anyone who doesn't want to give him that credit, like, that's just, it's personal bias that they don't like him, because he did that. He absolutely did. Like, when we're talking about how Weiss failed and how Willingham failed and how Davey failed, comparatively, Brian Kelly, like, in a different stratosphere than those guys, so much better than them. It's not comparable at all. He did such a better job than anyone had done for decades, really. Like, he really did a great job of getting the program back on its feet in a lot of ways, and setting it up. And there's a ton of great moves that he made, including hiring Marcus Freeman as his defensive coordinator, promoting Clark Lee as defensive coordinator, right? Like, all of these things that he did over the years that helped them, even just deciding to bring Chuck Martin in, and there's a whole bunch of things. There's way more pros than cons if you check those boxes for Brian Kelly. It's just that he doesn't want to admit that any of the cons are on him, or the way he phrases it doesn't put it in a way that's on him. It's still kind of like giving some of the blame to somebody else. And like, it's funny because totally understand how he would be bitter in some ways about not getting some of the advantages that Marcus Freeman has right now in terms of like the NIL, because that is a huge thing. It is a huge thing. It's not just Marcus Freeman's magnetic personality and all the other people around that are selling what's going on. The NIL part of it is massive, because if they had the NIL part of it before, then Keon Keeley doesn't go to Alabama. Peyton Bowen, like all of those guys, Dante Moore probably ends up, like, there's all of these things then that probably would have led to some of these guys being at Notre Dame that didn't end up, that were ready to pick Notre Dame or did pick Notre Dame and then chose not to. And I don't know if that would have changed any kind of trajectory. They've been still damn good. It's not like that's hurt them too bad, but now you've seen when they have all the pieces together, what it can look like. And the problem with Brian Kelly is he thinks that or at least my perception is that he thinks that if he had all this stuff, then he'd be doing what Marcus Freeman's doing, instead of realizing like, no, what mistakes did I make, or what should I have done different, or whatever. And yes, part of the thing at LSU was like, he said, yeah, he didn't do a good job with his coordinating hires or whatever. Like, yeah, that's for sure. But like, it's probably a bunch of other things on the list too, that he probably doesn't want to admit or doesn't want to talk about, that people have written stories about. And what we have talked about a bunch of times in this podcast, what I'm sure like Pete Sampson and Matt Fortuna have probably talked about on their podcast about things he didn't do right. But I mean, I didn't listen to the thing. There's no way I'm going to give that a listen. No shots at those guys. Just I'm saying I don't want to listen to Brian Kelly for an hour or however long the podcast is. But I don't. I bet they probably didn't get him to admit a lot of things that people probably want him to be open about, and he probably doesn't want to be open about because that probably it might not, or in his eyes, maybe it doesn't help him. He only wants to talk about the good he's in because he thinks that'll help him. But I actually think if he admitted some of the mistakes he made and said like this, and I'm going to change that or whatever, I kind of think that would open up all these doors for him to get another big job if he was willing to admit that. But I don't know if he's ever going to be there.
No, because the question and everything kind of comes from the premise of like you failed, and he's not going to admit that, right? He just won't. He's just not that type of person. I think it would be interesting if he was to get asked the question, and I don't believe this came up. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I listened to some of it. I believe this came up, or I don't believe it came up. Is that like, what's his view of, because he talks about he wants people to know that he is supportive of Notre Dame in what they're doing right now, which I don't really know what that means. Basically, like I think that's just a signal of like I don't have ill will towards Notre Dame or whatever. My question is like, look, he's been observing Notre Dame from afar now for a few years, and Notre Dame has ascended to a place that maybe people haven't, that he didn't reach, right? Like he reached a national title game, but like he didn't beat Georgia. He didn't beat a team the caliber of Penn State. So like what is his view of Notre Dame right now? And like, have you seen anything from Marcus Freeman where you think like, oh man, like did he even expect this? Like he was the coach, like Marcus Freeman was his defense. Like, did you think he would get to this point where they're recruiting the way that they are, the NIL piece, like in the way that they are leveraging things and the way that they're signing top 5 classes like regularly now. They'll probably be top 5 class next year. And this is a stated goal of Brian Kelly that he never reached. Like, I'm just curious, like, does he think that, like, what do you think about that? Like, what is your view? Why is he able to do it and you weren't? And if maybe he'll say like, oh, I didn't have these other things. It's like, okay, then that's fine. Did you do it at LSU?
Yeah.
Or you have all that stuff? No. So like, then maybe there's a disconnect there for him, and then maybe he could get to, and maybe he won't. He probably won't because that's just not his style. But
yeah, I would have loved to. I saw that he was very complimentary of Marcus and thinking like, especially him coming in as a first-time head coach and doing the job. So I know it's not that kind of thing, but specifically what you're saying about like him kind of acknowledging what's being done and that he didn't do or whatever.
Like, what are you impressed by?
Would love to kind of know some of that stuff. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to kind of see, because I saw a little bit of him on TV, and not that I'm surprised, because I do think he's a polished guy. He's good when he's on TV, like whenever he would like come in and guest and stuff too. Like, I think he is kind of meant to be somebody who can present in that way, in those like small doses. He's good at that.
I think if you could get him talking about the game and like an actual game, he's fine. He's clearly a very good coach. He clearly knows a lot.
He knows ball. He knows
for
ball.
Sure, right? Like like very much, way more than like someone like Bob Davie, right, who was on TV for a time. Like, I just think he's clearly just
so much more. Yeah.
Where he's deficient is when it's like he's got to explain what's going on with his football team or whatever it might be. I think if you get him in a booth or in a studio talking about, hey, it's halftime of this game, what do you see? I'll bet you he'll do great, because that's where he can really do things. Sam K doesn't look like it's going to be a tough conversation in this one. Well, you're wrong, Sam. There's a thread on ISD that Mike Frank started. It's ironic that Mike started it because he's, people view him as like a pessimistic person. But he put a thread on the ISD board about like, what are your concerns for this upcoming season? And I think that it's in the spirit of like everyone talks about how high their expectations are, and so that's kind of the backdrop of it. Just like we agree, everyone expects a lot of this team, right? And he put a thread out there. Like, what are you concerned about? Right. So, like, what are the top two things that you are concerned about with like the upcoming 2026 season?
I think for me, it's I think there's always a concern about certain guys if certain guys go down, whatever, right? And what that means. And I know you can point to like Ben Morrison going because he would have 100% been the guy in 2024 that I would have said, oh, if Ben Morrison goes down, it could be curtains. Like that could be the end of the season there. Yeah. And turns out they were okay, right? So I think but you could obviously say that about like with CJ Carr or whatever because of like what they have there. But that is something we could just everybody's got that. Everybody's got that.
Injuries are a concern for everyone.
I would say if you're going to be able to, I know they're going to be explosive on offense in the passing game, and I think they're going to be better in a lot of ways. But like, how good is the running game going to be? Like, I think it's going to be good, but can it be to the point where because when they're going to play Miami this year, I think that's a game that I actually don't think like they're going to, if they throw a lot, I think it's a bad idea. Like if they have to come out and CJ Carr is throwing 35 times in that game, I think that means they probably lost. Like I think that's the way, because of how Miami set up in terms of rush the passer. If you're like always playing from behind in that game, they also have like a bunch of ball hawks in the secondary, all of that kind of stuff. I think their weaknesses are they are not going to be able to play the run as well this year, specifically at the edge and at linebacker where they have a bunch of changes. But I mean, we'll see because, things can change for them in November, but that's where I would look at. And can you go against the team? It's still going to be tough to run against them. Like they have a bunch of studs on that team. It's like, can you run the ball in those kind of situations and like dictate a game when you don't have the quarterback as your thing? Because the 2024 team always they could not run. Georgia sold out to stop the run against them. Like, and that's why they didn't really do anything on offense, because they weren't a team that could push a vertical and all that kind of stuff too. But when you're going to play a team and you don't have Love and Price, can you get the same kind of explosiveness from the running game? The same kind of consistency from the running game? Like, is the O-line going to be, I think the O-line is going to be good, but are they going to be of that quality that you say, man, they absolutely, like, they won the matchup against Miami's defensive line. Like they won the matchup against BYU's defensive line. Like they absolutely dominated in those situations, because that's the one thing that I would say, like, I think it's a possibility. I think they're probably capable of that, but I want to see it. And you're not really going to get to see it until you get late against those in those situations. And honestly, I thought a lot about like the defense and stuff, and I just don't have things that
that was my next question. Is like, do you have any beyond injury for the defense?
No, I really don't. And I just don't. I mean, it says a lot that people are like, well, I still don't trust Chris Ash or whatever, right? And it's like, okay, there was the final 9 games of the year where they were playing at extremely high level under him. And I mean, we could point to, because we have talked about it, publicly and privately, about like, Well, I mean, Mike Mickens, pretty darn good coach, right? And how is it going to be when it's changed to Aaron Henry? And where are you going to see some of like the magic lost because of that, right? But I think maybe even if I'm looking at that, the talent there is just too good for them to drop off in a way that would be like they're still not like one of the 5 best secondaries in the country, just how they're built. Like that's what it is. Maybe we say down the line in terms of identifying talent or developing young talent or something like that. And we say, well, that's the difference between Mickens and Aaron Henry or something like that. Maybe we'll say that a couple years from now, but I just don't think this year it would be enough of a thing to do it. And also too, like, I think most people expect like, well, Partridge is going to get more out of the defensive line. And also too, they have more, I think they have more talent there now. And I saw that the 2 guys who used to work for PFF, and they got their own podcast now. Sorry, I forget the name of the podcast. Don't mean to not give them credit for it. But I saw them talking about, because they were ranking their top defenses. And I would say they made pretty good arguments for why Notre Dame's the top defense. They said, well, they have the top secondary in the country. Like, for most people, inarguably the top secondary in the country, arguably the top linebacker group in the country, and a top 5 defensive line. And they said there's some Notre Dame fans maybe aren't that sold on Chris Ash. They're like, you'd have to be a moron to not get the most out of these guys, because that's how much talent they have. Right. So, and I do think he's like a good coach, and now he's surrounded by more people that fit with him and stuff too, that I think also could give them even like a little bit more of a boost. And plus I think too, just based on kind of like what happened last year, is like, I think Marcus, if he has to step in, will step in more than he did maybe at the beginning of last year and all that kind of stuff. Preferred walk-on. Thank you, Chris. That's the name of their podcast. I want to give those guys some love, because I know they're not getting paid by PFF anymore, so they should get as much credit as possible. But where are the weaknesses that you're thinking? It's like, well, maybe they won't have an elite pass rush, but they might, and it's going to be good, because they have been good as the pass rush, and that now it's just like, well, can they get to elite? And it's I think probably a good probability that they do. And really on offense too, like, I think it's just, I do have enough confidence in the receivers where maybe I would say, well, boundary, I'm still not sold that like Micah Gilbert is going to be that dude, or Quincy Porter's going to be ready to go there, and they don't have there. But you can still have, like you've brought up before, Greg, about how Chris Brown certainly wasn't a dominant boundary.
Right.
That offense, that passing offense, was insane, and they were a field slot team for the most part, and they're really good in the field slot. So and even if you nitpick and say, well, I don't know about what they're going to get out of the tight end, it's like, how much are they going to need from the tight end? Also, when the backs like Aeneas Williams could level up there too. So it's kind of just like, hey, whether or not they can, hey, they know you're going to run. Can you run and control the game in these kind of situations? Because you're going to play in certain matchups that might not be favorable to drop back 30, 40 times in a game. That's pretty much.
I mean, speaking of the tight end and everything, like the Premer situation is also we're monitoring. I mean, that could just be a strength. Like, I think 2020, I mean, people felt good about it with Tremble and with Brock Wright, but then Michael Mayer came in and it was like, oh, okay. Like, that's now this is something it's very different. So there's that. So that's also percolating there. I think that, like, it's true on defense. The only thing I would say, and you referenced it, is like, is there a special sauce to Mickens that just you don't know what it is? It's hard to identify. It doesn't show up on tape or any kind of. It's just like an intangible thing that gets lost, and the secondary plays, I don't know,
slightly worse or
5% worse or whatever. I don't know, right? Like that just could be there, right? And I do want to acknowledge that that is a bigger deal than I think like Al Washington is, for example, or like Max Bulla is. That's
Yeah.
just that's my thought. Um, I think the thing that concerns me. I mean, someone brought up. I think it was Sam who brought up the CJ Carr. Like he wasn't as accurate with the deep ball as people kind of think because he threw so many.
Yeah.
And like that's something he's got to get better at. My concern isn't so much. It's sort of related to that in the sense that, like, man, there's a ton of I don't want to say pressure. There's a lot of assumptions right now that Mylan Graham is going to come in and be like the guy, and I think I'm one of those people who kind of feels like, yeah, he's gonna get it done. He's gonna be like really, really good for Notre Dame this year. But we don't know that, like we don't. We haven't seen it. He didn't do it at Ohio State, right? It is in his third year, and for whatever you would have liked to have seen it at Ohio State, basically. Now we have had guys like Will Fuller, for example. Like he showed something at Notre Dame in 2013. Like he showed, like, okay, he can get behind the defense, things like that. And then he came in and caught 76 passes, right? Complete unknown. EQ barely played.
Same thing, yeah.
As a freshman, came in, caught 58 passes, right? So it's not like it's impossible, right? We've seen it happen. I mean, even Miles Boykin to some extent, right? Where it's
Definitely
like
Miles Boykin.
He was a senior. He hadn't really done much. He had the Citrus Bowl, which it was a kind of a breakout performance from him. And then he was Notre Dame's. I think he was also 58 passes or something like that. So it can happen at wide receiver. We haven't seen it from Mylan Graham yet, and also like Jaden Greathouse, can he get the hamstrings healthy? That's another one. I don't want to say it's nitpicky. It's kind of one of those, like, it's a concern, but I also feel pretty good about it still. Like
It's
I'm
still
not
champagne
really
problems compared to a lot of
I'm
people,
not
right?
really concerned about it. And like you said, the running game, like how good is it going to be really? Is this a concern other than like maybe the BYU game and the Miami game, to where I think it could actually cost them a game? No, not really.
Yeah.
Right? Like the other 10 games, I'm not really. They should have enough. Frankly, they should have enough on defense to
Yeah.
solve a lot of those problems, and they might anyway in the other two games as well.
And I think one of the things that I'm going to write about for Six Thoughts this week is kind of like, well, who could be this year's Tay Johnson? Like the guy who, and it doesn't have to be a safety, but I just mean like a guy at any position that really, like, people have high hopes for, but they're like, well, we'll see what happens. And then he just ends up being like, oh my gosh, this guy's elite. Like he's just whatever. And that could be Mylan Graham, right? That could be Mylan Graham. There's a whole bunch of candidates there. But the thing is that Notre Dame's in a position where if someone will probably be this year's Tay Johnson or something, they just won't get the playing time that Tay Johnson did because Tay Johnson's still there, and Adon Schuler's there. And all of these other guys are set up to be, based on who's returning. Like Madden Fermo could absolutely take a massive jump this year and just be like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is why he was so coveted. And he just is like a game wrecker and he's just taking off, at some point in the year this year. Because I would say if you look at like Luke Talek last year, that's someone who he didn't win the starting job. In fact, he was behind Stroman and Tay Johnson. So you'd look and be like, well, it's kind of a forgotten guy in some sense, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not really there. Ends up having a great year in taking advantage of his thing. And he certainly leveled up. And now it's like, well, now he's leveling up even more and he's not even a starter, right? So that's the kind of thing where I could see like Ethan Long. I mean, I'm not predicting this or anything like that, But I was thinking about like the whole nickel thing and people, because it is like one thing for people to worry about. Well, is Christian Gray the best nickel? Is it Dallas Golden?
Yeah.
Is it McKinney or whatever? I don't know, that Ethan Long might not be the nickel.
Yeah.
Like, he absolutely could be. And he might be awesome at it. Because I think about how a lot of
or it could be Tay Johnson and you put Ethan Long at safety.
Or Joey O'Brien. Or who, like, you know what I mean? Like, they got there's a lot of moving pieces that can happen that I just really think that, you know, and yeah, it's not going to all happen. I understand, like, not all these guys are going to take this jump here and there, and there's going to be injuries along the way and all that kind of stuff too. But there's just enough there that it's kind of undeniable that some guys, it's just how football season goes. There are guys who just level up and they all of a sudden it's like, wow, they hit something here. You know, Howard Cross in 2023 or whatever, right? Like him just like, oh, well, now like Howard Cross just went from like, hey, he's a pretty good starter to like, is Howard Cross unblockable? Like where he had this, he had like a string of like where he just was dominant, right? People weren't saying, hey, I think Howard Cross is going to be a midseason All-American. No one was talking about that. They would think, hey, I think he could have a good year. It's like, oh no, he actually like was dominant in games and like no one could block him. And they had to switch the center because he was kicking the other guy's butt the whole game, right? Like, so that kind of stuff is going to happen to other guys on the team. And it's just like, it's why it's kind of impossible not to get excited about, you know, what could be with a lot of these things.
Yeah. All right. A lot of excitement around the Notre Dame football program. So that's a good place to end it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you heard, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell. So you know whenever it is we are going live, we'll be back on Thursday for more Notre Dame football talk. Maybe we'll talk about that. We'll go deeper into the breakout candidates, you know, as we get into fall camp and everything. So it's going to be a very fun show for everyone. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good rest of your day. We'll see you on Thursday. Keep hitting and hustling.